This is Bishop Gilmore of Grace That Reigns, together with our founder, Jacqueline. We are coming to the end of our When Monday Comes retreat at home. And as we close our reflections on the barriers that hold us back from our spiritual journey and from the God who guides us on it, let us talk of wind today, of whisper, and of unforgiveness too. First, the wind. Winds are large in Kansas, and it seems just always there. They can fray your nerves, they can set your teeth on edge, and in an instant, they can turn destructive. Tornadoes can cause a town to explode. They blow in suffering then, and hurt, and loss. But most who live through such bad winds will say something like this: all these in rubble around me, these are only things. I have my life still, and my family. What really counts is that we have one another. They can suffer crippling loss, you see, and still feel deeply grateful, calm, and at peace. And even when the tornado brings the ultimate loss, the death of a loved one, their grief will be tempered somehow, in ways that relatives and friends and neighbors cannot quite understand. And not even those who grieve can get their minds around it either. It is too big for them, this large wind and this savage effect. They are left numb, but with a deeper calm inside it. And then the whisper. A whisper is but a little breath of wind, a tiny thing, behind your back usually, a sliver of gossip about you, true or untrue, and your calm will vanish in a flash, will give way to quick anger, to a burning desire for revenge, and to a lasting, simmering resentment. And so the grudge is born. The need to punish strains at the leash. We dream revenge. We cannot let the hurt go. Forgiveness? Do you know what he said to me? Do you know what she did to me? They don't deserve forgiveness. I will never forgive them. I never want to see them again. They no longer exist for me. Don't talk to me about forgiveness. No. Never. God is pained by such a reaction, and you need to know this. When he taught us how to pray, when he gave us the Our Father, only one line in that prayer had a condition attached to it, and that was the line about forgiveness. Forgive us our trespasses, he said, as we forgive those who trespass against us. There is a world of weight in the two letters of that tiny word, as. we will be forgiven to the same degree that we forgive others. No ifs or ands or buts about it. God is pained by such a reaction, and you need to know that He wants more from you than that. Forgiveness is not a feeling, you see. Forgiveness is a decision. You may well be floating in a wild river of unforgiveness, and you may be feeling it with each push and pull of the current. And you can still make the decision to forgive. How is that possible? As you are swept from bank to bank, quite beyond your control, you can come to see that it is not a pleasant thing. It is not a healthy thing at all to be in a raging river, swallowing so much water, banging into floating trees and abandoned tires and little red wagons too. It's not pleasant there. It's not healthy there. You can see that. You can come to see all the bad things that happen to your family, to your friendships, to your work relationships when you refuse to forgive. You can see these things clearly. You can count up the costs as you go under yet another time. And you can make a quite sensible decision to cut your losses. You can forgive. With His grace, you can step onto the high ground. Keeping all that negative feeling bottled up, this can do terrible things to your physical, mental, and spiritual health. Keeping anger and resentment inside you for prolonged periods of time becomes corrosive. So corrosive that it will actually prevent God's healing grace from getting through to you. You can come to the point where you will not even grab the lifeline He holds out for you. You thresh in the bitter waters instead. Who in his right mind would ever do such a dumb thing? Who in her right mind would prefer the high waters to the high ground? You can say you are sorry. So, ask for His healing grace with sincerity. The hand is there. Take that hand. Dry ground is better than wild water.
Hey, Bishop Gilmore, thank you so much. You have a way with words that is unprecedented. It's like pure poetry. And I want to reflect on what you spoke about. I think I'm going to need time just to listen to your part more and more. But before I do that, I'm going to continue on with this presentation on forgiveness. I think, though, that forgiveness is the most healing gift that we can receive or give. It's the most powerful gift that gives us freedom, don't you think?
I do think that's right, Jacqueline. It's very difficult to forgive, I think, because it's a huge hurt to ourselves and to our egos that makes us be unforgiving.
Right.
It makes us feel angry. It makes us feel that justice has not been served.
Mm-hmm. And I think each of us has experienced this feeling of this hurt that comes from the unforgiveness or being not forgiven by someone else. Don't you think?
Correct. That is correct, yes.
Last week I spoke about the bottle of spices in our last podcast, and I was mentioning that these bottles were filled with spices, but over time they dried up and they were hardened, and all the granules could not come out of the spices because it seemed like it was cemented over time. So therefore, there was no space left for the granules to move. Remember that?
I do remember that. It was an excellent example.
I think that forgiveness is one of those things that cements and glues all the granules together, and it's one of those things that causes us to stop and to freeze and to harden over time.
That's right. It does that.
How does that happen in the spiritual level then, Bishop?
Well, it happens. The bottle of the spices is almost a metaphor for what happens inside us.
Mm-hmm.
When you describe how the granules cement over time and there's no space for them to move,
Mm-hmm.
the same thing happens to us interiorly, spiritually.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you recognize that yourself, that we can harden over time. Our
Right.
minds and our hearts can harden over time.
Right.
When we refuse to pour ourselves out, our compassion out, to forgive someone else.
Mm-hmm. I agree. When we're not able to forgive, it definitely hurts our heart and definitely our soul, because we're unable to find peace in ourselves. And then we get anxious. For a long time, doctors have told us that there are physical benefits to forgiving someone, and if we hold back, then we can suffer from it over time.
What does forgiveness do, Jacqueline?
When I forgive someone, in me, I feel less stressed. I feel like my heart rate is going down. I feel like the anxiety level is going down because I'm not thinking these hurtful thoughts towards this person. I no longer seek vengeful thoughts. That person is no longer stuck in me and stuck in my brain, going round and round and round. Also, I can feel then that my blood pressure is lowered. These are some of the physical benefits of just me forgiving someone. And I feel a sense of peace. And having that sense of peace within me, I can feel that at the same time my self-esteem is also rising. Like I'm feeling better about myself, and I don't no longer feel trapped.
And those are commonly accepted as good things for somebody who's able to forgive. You can feel those things inside your own body. But forgiveness also helps us on a spiritual level as well. And it can be much more relieving spiritually.
Mm-hmm.
These are physical symptoms you just described, but the purely spiritual things inside us,
Mm-hmm.
we can see that too. You remember that hymn that we use all the time in our church, "Make me a channel of your peace"?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I do.
I think that was attributed to St. Francis of Assisi.
Mm-hmm.
And the only thing we know for sure is he did not write that. So where it came from, we're not so sure about that. There's a line in it that says, "Where there is injury, pardon, Lord."
Mm-hmm. That's
Give me pardon.
very powerful.
Help me to pardon it, okay? Mm-hmm. That line speaks of forgiveness. In people's day-to-day lives, we're going to find that hurting takes place all the time.
Mm-hmm.
That's part and parcel of living together as human beings.
Mm-hmm.
We're inevitably going to hurt one another. And so we have to learn, inevitably, to forgive one another. Simple as that.
Right. That's why the word pardon is so powerful, even then and even now in our times.
Who do you find, Jacqueline, are the most difficult people to forgive? I say it takes place all the time in our lives.
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But who are the most likely to be hard to forgive?
As I think about myself and I think about the people who we've met through the years in ministry, I have found that the people who are closest to us, our family members, are the most difficult people to forgive. We hold them so dear to our hearts because we believe that they're not going to hurt us, and we sort of we trust them. When we are hurt by these members who are so close to us, we feel betrayed, and we feel that we've been taken advantage of, and we feel that how can these people hurt us? Our family members are the ones
closest to us. Yeah.
Right.
Co-workers, family members, co-workers, friends. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a line that's often used from St. Thomas Aquinas that we only hate those whom we first loved.
Mm-hmm. Expand on that.
The ones who are close to us are the ones, when they hurt us, can draw forth unforgiveness and hate.
Right.
Yeah. We never really hate those we don't know.
Right, because they are not the ones who emotionally have a relationship with us.
So you were telling me earlier about kind of a case study in this whole business of forgiving or not forgiving. Can you describe for our listeners what you were talking about?
Yeah, I remember a story about two brothers who I met. And they were thick as thieves as children. They were telling me that they played together, they did everything together because they were just only a few years apart. So one was older and the second one was younger. And when I met them at the parish, one of the brothers explained to me, he said to me, back in the old country, my father decided that he was going to sell a plot of land. And so we were to get together to discuss this plot of land and find out what to do with it and how to settle this. So my elder brother decided that he was going to go back to the old country to take care of the sale of the land and also to take care of all the paperwork. But what happened was my elder brother, whom I loved so dearly, went back and sold the property. But when it came time to do distributing the money, I found out that he had kept more than half of it, meaning my share of it too. I knew my brother had completed the deal, but he kept the transaction away from me for the longest time. And I only found out through a relative of mine. The thing was, how would I have known? And why did he keep that from me for so many years? And it really hurt me.
Okay, sure.
And I didn't know what to say to him for the longest time. There was resentment growing between us. And being the younger brother, I looked up to him. And I grew very angry at him because he just was not just. And then he went on in this story and he said to me, Bishop, I didn't need the money anyway because I was doing so well in my life. And I knew my brother didn't need it because he too had found a very good profession and he was happy. Just wanted you to note, Bishop, that this man told me that the rift between him and his brother lasted for about 20 years. But finally, this man who was in front of me, now in his maybe late 70s, told me that his wife had asked them to meet, and the brothers, both of them, agreed. This is the story that his brother told him upon their meeting. I took that money and put it away because I wanted to save it for the both of us in case we didn't have the means later on in our lives. And then the gentleman in front of me told me, you know, Jacqueline, I've made a huge mistake. I did not forgive my brother for 30 years. And my biggest regret was the fact that I didn't even try. And so we lost time together. And, you know, you can't gain time. Time is not like money. Time is time. It's valued over a relationship.
You know, forgiving somebody doesn't really mean that you have to agree with their behavior. Had the older brother taken that money
Right.
and sequestered it for himself,
Right.
That probably would have been wrong.
Right.
Okay? So you don't have to agree with the behavior that he did. Now, as it happened, the younger brother misinterpreted what was happening there. And his anger was such that he never could even bring himself to talk to the older brother about it. So you don't have to agree with their behavior. You need to be careful about making sure you understand what it was that really happened.
Right, definitely. What I remember most about this is the younger brother said, "What contributed to my growing anger over the years was the fact that I kept ruminating about it." He also mentioned that he took it personally. My brother betrayed me, so how could I forgive him? Okay? And if I forgive him means I condone what he did to me.
It wouldn't mean that he did that, but he thought that if he did, he would say what he did was all right, when it wasn't all right.
Right. It was almost like he was saying I gave him permission to.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
And then he said that if I decide that I was going to forgive him, then I'll be seen as a pushover. He didn't want to back down. And then he was thinking in his head, this is him ruminating, he was rude towards me, therefore not showing me any respect.
Right.
And then also, how could he not remember me? I'm important,
Yeah.
So then
Those are things that people say over and over again.
Yes.
When they're that story is very fine because it shows what can happen. We can always forgive. We're the ones who hold ourselves back. How long generally does it take you to forgive someone?
That's a good question.
Yeah. That's something that we need to stop and think about. Think about the last time you were hurt by somebody else, okay? Do you still bear a grudge against that person?
It's a good question, too.
How long ago has that been? Do I still play that scenario that led to my anger over and over again in my mind?
Oh, that's when the emotion gets...
You talked about the loop that
Right.
played in these two brothers' minds. Okay. What level of anger do I have for this person? Has it gone beyond the momentary flash of irritation? Has it turned into bitterness? Has it turned into a fantasy of seeking revenge?
Sure.
Did I ever ask for God's grace to help me forgive my enemy, or the person who hurt me? Or have I willingly chosen not to?
Right.
Lots of times I find when people talk about these things, they tend to tell me, they don't tell me this, but they speak of it in such a way that I can almost interpret their saying, but it feels so good to be mad. Feels so good to hate this person.
I can understand that, too, sometimes.
Understand it? Yeah. And so for that reason, we don't even ask. The Lord is always holding out the hand to help us forgive somebody else. And we're floundering around in the raging river, and we don't take that hand. Yeah? We deliberately choose not to take it. Okay?
Right.
Because of all those things you talked about earlier. That you're going to feel like a pushover, that sort of thing.
I think also we go with these expectations that the people whom we love, the people who we are with, who hurt us, we don't think it's going to happen because we expect them to be just like us.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. When was it that you asked the Lord for forgiveness in your own life? for your own actions that caused the quarrel or contributed to the quarrel. See, as you describe how the ego takes over,
Right.
and all these things are important, overwhelmingly important to you, and these questions we've just asked,
Right.
the ability to look at the other's point of view becomes important too. And the ability to look for the Christ who can help us forgive and look at the other person's point of view too.
Oh, so basically look with empathy, which is really key to
Exactly so. Yeah.
to forgiveness, really. How are they and what are they like in their shoes? Yeah, that's true.
You have in your book a quotation from James, the letter of James.
Right.
You might read that here.
James 4, chapter 4, 1 to 2. What causes fights and quarrels among you? Don't they come from your desires that battle within you? You desire, but do not have, so you kill. You covet, but you cannot get what you want, so you quarrel and fight. You do not have because you do not ask God, which is what you were just saying just now.
Right. So I think the thing to remember always is that hurts are going to happen. You know, if you put jagged rocks in a can and shake them over and over again on a machine, what's going to happen to the rocks in the end?
They're going to be smooth.
The jagged pieces are going to come off. They're going to be rubbed smooth. And that's the way it feels to live in a society, in a community sometimes. You know, we're all a little jagged around the edges. And so our living together in close quarters before we were all locked down,
Right.
our living together in the old days produced that smoothing effect as we were rubbing against one another.
Right.
And dealing with the more serious hurts and slights that take place. So it's important just to think through your chapter on the unforgiveness and the forgiveness that the Lord can give us, to remember that we are the ones who close the door. We can open it too if we just ask the Lord for His grace to do that.
Right, because if we don't, this can lead to resentments.
It can drag on for 30 years.
Right.
Or more. Sometimes it drags on before it can ever be resolved in this life. Yeah. So, friends, that's our story for today on the question of forgiveness in your life, forgiveness in the lives of those who hurt you. We would invite you to think these things over, invite you to look over that chapter in the book again, and make a serious and sober examination of your own conscience.
Thanks, Bishop. Now I'm going to just pray a prayer for our listeners. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Dear Jesus, please help me, because I know that I've held resentment and bitterness against my family member or my friends. I am tired of keeping this person in my mind, and I ask you for your deep mercy so that I can forgive myself and forgive this person also. When temptation strikes me, give me your grace not to hold on to any more memories or resentments of this particular moment. I want to be at peace. I want to be free of this burden. Protect me, Jesus, against temptation when I feel resentment or feelings of revenge creeping into my heart. I'm not perfect, and I know neither is this person. So please, Jesus, help us to become more merciful to each other. Amen.
That's always the first step toward opening ourselves to His forgiving grace.
Thank you, everyone, for listening to our podcast on forgiveness and resentment. This is Bishop Gilmore and Jacqueline Lowe at www.gracethatreigns.com, and may our good Lord continue to bless you.